Good evening. We are so happy to be with you all on yet again another edition of the Tando Channel Book Club. And today we have Ms. Maliya Sililo in the house from Zambia, a seasoned author who has done amazing things, including being the head writer for the hit show Cabanana. We are so glad to have her on the show with us tonight and to hear everything she has to share with us. Maliya, how are you? Will you greet our guests?
Thank you very much. How are you, ladies and gentlemen? I'm so happy to be here and truly grateful to being invited for this show. Yeah. My full name is Maliya Mzyece Sililo from Zambia.
Yes. I didn't want to attempt to say the full name in case I butchered. Okay, so as is my custom, I always start every book club with a quote or an African proverb. And today I'm coming with an African proverb I've probably said 2 or 3 times before. But when I think of Maliya's story and I think of some of the things that she's been sharing with me as we've been preparing for the book club, I just think that this is so important because it captures her motivation for what she does. And it's a Mayan proverb that says, when an elder in Africa dies, a library also goes with them. And to me, this fascinating woman has been such a library of wisdom around vernacular languages, wisdom around why we should write for the next generation, but also just why as women we should write and just what the writing process is like. And so I'm just very, very grateful and feel very privileged to be able to sit with this library tonight and share that library with all of you. So without further ado, Maliya, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you to yourself?
I'm a lot of things, actually. And when I'm asked that question, I usually wonder where to begin from. Okay, I'll just say I was born a twin in 1952, so I'm quite advanced. This year I turned 69. I'm a teacher by profession, but I retired some years back. I think I retired when I was 66 or 67, when I was turning 67. I retired from teaching, having taught from primary school to actually college. So I've been through the system. And I feel I've raised the Zambian child from the time it starts school in reception up to when they leave school at college. So I've really done my part there. But besides teaching, I've been writing. As a teacher, you are sometimes encouraged to write something. And especially when you teach English. And I feel in my heart sometimes that all the passages I'm given for comprehension do not suit the purpose I want. That's how I started writing. So I would write a story for comprehension to suit a particular skill I want to teach in that particular comprehension. And I found the students really enjoyed what I was writing. Then I started writing plays for students to produce, and they really enjoyed that. And then came the AIDS pandemic. It was devastating. You just don't understand unless you were there. I was a young mother then when the AIDS pandemic really hit Africa. And we had the funeral after funeral. We had marriages breaking and all that. So I thought about it. If I found out I had AIDS, what would I do? Then I thought, oh, I would try to live the best way I can up to the time God calls me. And I thought I should put this into a book. That's how my first book was born, Picking Up the Pieces. So, of course, the news is devastating. You have to pick up the pieces and continue living. That was the main theme in my book. After that, I think I got a bit recognized in the country now as a writer. So I got an invitation to write for Cabanana. And you know the story, I ended up a head writer there. I really enjoyed that stint, and I realized I really enjoy writing TV scripts. I went ahead to write, I think, 2 more hits that went on TV, and really Zambians liked them. I wrote Zuva, the first part, and the second part. I was one of the writers. And then we had Love Games. Again, it was based on AIDS, and I did that. After that, I was invited actually to go to Uganda under FemRight, and it was a workshop, and we wrote stories, and my first short story was picked, and it went into an anthology published by FemRight. And we were made actually to read to an audience. It was so well received that I got excited about writing short stories. So I wrote my second short story. After that, I wrote several short stories. It was a process, actually. It went on for about 3 years. And then finally, I decided, let me put this into a collection. And this is the collection I'm celebrating now. It isn't something that came overnight. But while I was doing that, I got also interested in writing for children. We have a saying in Zambia, it's a Lenje saying, another language in my country. And it says, what adults see in the future, the young people can't see, they just have to be told. Because children can't see as far as an adult can see. We might be short-sighted or something, but our minds can vision what is happening, what is going to happen in the future. With that motivation in mind, I started writing for children. And I think now I've gone up to 10 publications for children.
Yes. That's amazing. Yeah.
I forget about my personal life. I'm widowed. I've got 3 children and many children. I was married to a lady.
Yes. Wow, that's awesome. That's incredible. And such a rich history in terms of writing. Like when you talk about teaching for the length of time and all the different levels of education that you've done, and then all of the different types of writing you've done, many people just pick one niche, but you've done drama, you've done TV, you've done short story, you've done children, you've also done vernacular languages. But before we go to children's books, I just want to dig deeper into the current collection that you recently published with So Train Publisher. You did that in 2019, and you referred to it earlier. It's called Despite the Bruises. So for many of you readers, I really, I'm jealous because I want to get a copy of this book. I wasn't able to get an e-copy online, but anyone going to Zambia, if you get there and you manage to get into any of the bookstores, please find a copy of Despite the Bruises and, gift me with that and let me know about it. But here's a brief description to whet your appetite. Despite the Bruises is an electric mix of stories that range from contemplative musings about stolen innocence to abrupt farces which reveal the blurred lines between friend and foe, to heartbreaking first-person accounts of love won and lost. All the stories speak to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of everyday obstacles, the ones that are significant in the private life of the soul. The collection speaks especially of the unique strength and dignity of women and girls, and celebrates the incessant, recognizable beauty that glows fervently and bursts forth unmistakably like a bruised rose. A girl learns the true meaning of womanhood in all its beauty and potential corruption in one story. In another story, a man will go to all possible lengths to secure his bride. In another story, a father must come to terms with the identity his daughter chooses for herself. A husband and wife must decide what to accept and what to reject of each other in order to live in harmony. It is a diverse collection of stories, but each handled with the love and care of a writer who loves and cares for her readers. And the reason why I would love a copy of this book is what Maliya told me about how she came up with the stories over the years. You talked to me about themes would come into your mind. Tell us a little bit of what that process was like as you were reflecting on women and how there were all these triggers that were coming at you for some of these stories that have been mentioned in the description of this book.
Thank you very much. Actually, these things came from my life story as well as from watching others. And as a teacher, you tend to come across a lot of characters and a lot of, you tend to bump into a lot of people's lives, willingly or unwillingly. So you tend to get themes and you want to put across to people what is happening and probably educate. You know, I'm always a teacher. So in my books, I'm always thinking of what am I teaching the community when I write this book or when I write this story. Okay, I remember when I wrote about the visitor, the thought that came into my mind was, women are always there. They are always there at birth and they are always there at death, you know, and it is always women who are always there. And then I thought of the path that women go through when they, from the time they give birth, the love and the care for the child. And I thought of how were they doing it before under 5 came? You know, under 5 clinics, I'm sure you have the same in Zimbabwe, but here in Zambia, we have under 5 clinics. And I asked my mother, how were you doing it before under 5? Because here we have the nurse always reminding us the child is underfed, the child is. So she told me that we had our own system. You know, we had beads we used to put on the child and would check the child's weight by using the beads, whether the beads are tight or not. And we used to bounce the baby just to check whether the child is developing properly physically, you know, all those things. And I thought, wow, let me put it in a story. And so that's how the visitor was born. So I went on with all these, and the one that really interested me most was the real woman, Monaka Zingaengai. You know, that story is because of what happens to women when a man doesn't love you anymore. You know, you find all sorts of things and try to dehumanize you. And I've witnessed women who are being told they are nothing, you know. And when I find out, really, it isn't the woman's fault. It's just the man has lost interest in her. And that's what happens. So what makes a woman a real woman? And that's how this one was born, the real woman. And I went on and on when the flower blooms. You know, when you look at a little girl, when a girl is born and growing up, how those legs are so unsightly as they going around. And then suddenly at 13, boom, there's a beautiful flower. You know, so what happens to this flower when it blooms? And at that time, I remember there was a Lozi song that talked about a woman as a flower. And this singer was saying, these women you see, they are flowers from God. So we must treat them nicely. And I thought of all the things that happen to a young lady, the confusion that goes on in her head when she's suddenly, you know, attracting all these people towards her, the men, some scrupulous women and all that. And she gets totally confused. Some unscrupulous men take advantage of that. And you find that some women end up, you know, pregnant, some girls end up pregnant, and you have society blaming this poor girl. And really, I feel sympathy for the girl because she was totally confused and somebody took advantage of her confusion. So she ended up pregnant. So I went on like that. And then I had Seiko's business. Seiko's business, I didn't want to forget the young women who are ambitious and what happens to them and what pulls them backwards, family obligations and things like that. And some fight on and they continue to carry the business as well as looking after the family at the same time. But I wanted to explore in this story the problems they face, the struggles they go through, though they manage, but it's really a problem. And the most treasured possession was written. Yeah, it was a very funny way when we started thinking about this. When I was a young mother, it wasn't common to see young men who had earrings. You know, it wasn't a common sight, not as it is now. And one of my friends then had a daughter who was in Germany. And she came with a young man who had earrings. And the mother was so disappointed. She had told me she would call me to come and greet this young man. She didn't. And later, I found out she couldn't do it because the young man had earrings. And I thought, what if the daughter had a sex change? What was she going to do? She was just disappointed with the earrings. And that's how this most treasured possession was born. I wrote a story in my imagination, how a family would react to such a situation. I mean, those days, we used to hear about it. It hadn't arrived here. We just used to hear about it from the West, that people were having. You can have a sex change if you want, you know, but it hadn't happened here yet. Then we had the burial rights for Tisa. Again, I was thinking about change. Somebody had suggested in Zambia that why don't we cremate bodies? We are running out of land to bury. And the idea of cremation was a better idea. It was a solution. There was a backlash from the public. And from there, that's where the burial rights for Tisa was born. Okay, damn the receipt. I wouldn't write a whole book without referring to the corruption that is in most African countries today. Damn the receipt was born from my own experiences on the road when I'm driving and things like that. The way you try to get away from the police by offering or they ask for a bribe, either of the two. They are dealt with in this short story. Okay. Then we have a Bruised Rose. This again was an experience I got from an old woman who told me how she suffered because her husband had run away with her 2 children and left her in another province, and she wasn't sure where he was. The woman struggled and fought until she traced him, and she was reunited with her children. Okay. The beauty of the world was mostly on, I based this on the life in the rural areas and game areas in my country. You know, how women sometimes refuse to move to go and live in a game area because they're afraid of animals and things like that. Now, we get this picture that women in Africa just go according to the whim of the man. But it's not always like that. Our men are not always bullies per se. So we have this man who considers the feelings of the wife and he chooses that he'll be commuting because the wife just couldn't stand wild animals. So he chose that he'll be commuting. Okay. Then we have sweet relief. That's the one where I look at death and how I feel as Africans, we tend to not want to talk about death. I feel we should talk about death. We should prepare our children that one day will be normal. Okay. And I feel we should really prepare them and tell them what to do with whatever the remains that are there. Your property, your body, you must prepare your children for all that. Mm-hmm. But, you know, it's taboo. They will tell you it's taboo. You don't talk about death. You know, it's like, to me, it's like burying your head in the sand because death is something, it's our everyday, it's always there. Just like birth, it's always there. It's always there by your side. You don't know when it's going to happen, but it will happen. So I think we should really bring it in and talk about it, have a conversation on it, even in a family situation.
Yeah,
in
definitely.
India, you talk about writing a will, they think you're a witch. You want to kill somebody. So always be quiet. That's the last one.
That is amazing. I love how you just gave us pictures of all of those different stories. But what I love in your process is that the way these ideas came to you, it was like you were collecting gifts in your everyday life, in conversations you were having with people, in things that really struck you from the past, and all along you were collecting all of these gifts to give to us in the collection of stories that's called Despite the Bruises. And what I love about all of the range of stories and the diverse themes is that there's really a lot of wisdom for life. Like you're in all of these stories that entertain us and captivate our imagination. You're also bridging us to a lot of social issues of the day and questions we have to ask ourselves as human beings. So that's really, really incredible. And it's quite clear that, tonight we're sitting at the feet of an elder. One of the interesting things is the book's focus on women. And I know that one of the things we wanted to celebrate was the strength of a woman. Tell us about that journey as you were telling us the stories of all of these very different women at different ages, different places in their lives, different dilemmas. What made them all strong? For that to be a recurring theme in the book.
Yes, actually, again, I wanted to tell the world, if not remind the African woman that she's not as vulnerable as people make her to be. When you look at the African woman, she has inner strength that is incredible. Always when people look at a couple in a home, and I've tackled that in the books, they always think the woman is downtrodden, the woman has no say. But the African woman has a lot of say in what is going on around her. She might not say it bluntly as the Western woman would do, but she would say it in a subtle way, or she would influence the husband in a subtle way. And the women have that inner strength from the time they give birth. And when they even helping a young woman to give birth, they have that inner strength, and they encourage the young mother. They train the young mother. To the time of death, it's a woman sitting beside that, the dead body, or the mourners, the chief mourner. There's that inner strength in every woman. I remember when I was widowed, with the modern trends, almost everybody had to leave immediately because they had to go for work. But when my aunties arrived from the village, they were so calm, so comfortable, and they passed on that strength from themselves to me, so that I also picked it up, and I was strong for my children and even for myself. These days, there's going to the psychiatrist, going to, what you call counselors. And I remember these women counseling me. I didn't have to go to a counselor because they sat there and talked with me. And I really had all my pain out because they sat patiently with me and listened to me and what I had to say. So really, African women are not as vulnerable as the picture painted. They are very, very strong women. They can, which reminds me of that woman who gave birth in a tree. Can you imagine giving birth in a, because in Mozambique, there was a flood. Yeah, it was in Mozambique and there was a flood. And she had to endure all that for the sake of the life she was giving. She survived that. So what I'm trying to put across here is that women survive different circumstances. They are very strong emotionally, and though physically they cannot be compared to men, but they are very strong. They have that inner strength. They can stand anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Amen to that. Amen to that. And I love what you shared about the support from the elder women that came and sat with you, and you were able
Yes,
to pour out your pain, and how we often take those things for granted. But
yes,
actually, there are real strong resilience mechanisms in our communities and our societies that are really
yes.
intrinsic to our identity as Africans. So very, very deep and very profound there. I want to just take us on a brief sort of detour to now the children's books. You've got over 10 titles in print for children's books. What
Mm.
fascinates me about these titles is that they're in many of the different vernacular languages. And your most recent book that's been celebrated or that people can find online, again published by So Trained Publishers, who also published Despite the Bruises, is Cocoa Grows Food. So
Yes.
um, talk to me a little bit about the vernacular languages before we get into Cocoa Grows Food. Why write in Nyanja and Chichewa in different vernacular languages, especially
Mm.
for children?
Yes, actually, when I started teaching, I found that there was a rule in Zambia where you had to teach in English. Speaking vernacular was forbidden. When I went to school, we started learning in the local language. I don't know how they changed it somewhere. They changed it somewhere in 1964 or 63. Two, we should teach in English from grade one. Now, imagine a child from a home, and in the home, they are speaking the local language. And he gets into class, and straight away, he's supposed to use English. And the teacher is supposed to use English. The first reading book was English. Okay, Mlenga and Jerita was written in English. It really devastated the education system because the children couldn't cope. So our reading ages dropped in the country. And it was all like that for years and years. The whole system changed recently, I think, about 3 years back. So when a law was passed that the children should be taught in the language of play. So if a teacher is transferred to a particular area and she can't speak that language, she has to learn that language so that she can teach effectively. So the teachers have to teach in the language of play. Now that brought another problem because there were no books to teach reading. So there was a call for books to be written. I remember I was invited by a group called Room to Read. And we were trained how to write for children, how to write for a particular age group. Okay, you are writing for 7-year-olds, this is how you write. You know, your sentences must not be longer than 7 words or more than 5 words. Yeah, the illustrations must be bright and big. This is one of them. The illustration is bright and big for the children. And so after they trained us like that, I think I wrote 4 or 5 books for Room to Read in Chichewa. And then I think I visited the village, my local village. I saw how excited the children were to see me and to relate the books to me. When they could read, this is the lady who wrote the book. They were reciting the book. I was really made to feel a hero that day. They came to see me in the evening and we recited the books and they were so excited. I'd never seen something like that before. So I came back and I told even my publishers that actually the kids are so excited and they can read the book, they can recite, they understand every word. So I think the government now is going in the right direction to teach children how to read in their local language because they understand what is going on. After that, I started writing in the local language. Then I remember somebody telling me that Tonga, there's a language called Tonga in Zambia. Tonga is so difficult. It's so difficult to find words that are easy for kids. especially words that will have a consonant and a vowel, so that a grade 1 can read. I thought I can speak Tongan, and I know I can find words. So I tried it out. I first wrote those simple words, lots of them, and then I thought of how can I make a book for a grade 1 reader, a child who doesn't know much about reading, who can just sound these and blend the letters and come up with a story. And that's how I wrote my first Tonga book, Kana Kalaria, a child is crying. Mostly because I had to pick the words so that they suit that age group and the way the ministry says the words should go. Okay, the consonant and the vowel combination. Yeah, that's how I managed. I wrote that Tonga one. Then I wrote another one in Nyanja. And finally, my Sotre, my publishers, asked me to write one on the SDG 5. Is it SDG 3? No, yeah, SDG 3. So I wrote on hunger. He published it and he sent it to, is it African Union Library? Yeah, African Union Library, something like that. And it was picked as one of the best books for children. I based that one on the things that I really feel children should learn. That's it, basic agriculture and the skill to grow your own food. I feel we should start them young. And another one that I don't like, begging. So I tried to deal with that in that case, it's a small book that if you shouldn't go begging, you should grow your own food. You shouldn't, I feel we should start them young with these skills and the ideas that begging, there's no honor in begging, but somehow we tend to, in our culture, that is, we tend to disregard that fact because we say a person who has more is under obligation to invite all the relatives to, and give them, and you forget your own pleasures. Of course, you shouldn't be stingy. I agree with that. You should give where it's necessary. But at the same time, we shouldn't encourage children to go begging. It's really an embarrassment. And you have all these kids who think they're right, and they're all over the streets begging. And when you don't give them, they think you are horrible. So I feel that's something we really should fight. So it stays in the mind. And as they grow older, they become leaders. They lose the initiative. And they start thinking, we'll go and beg. We'll go, this one should help us. That one should help us. Shouldn't be like that. We should really look at our own initiatives. And we should start teaching the children at a tender age that they should really think of their own initiative first before they think of begging. So that's my journey about the books and the children's books. I really enjoy that calling. And I feel really I'm answering our tradition, where according to our culture and tradition, as you get older, it's your job to train the young ones. While you guys in this age are busy running around, I have arrived where I should be teaching the young ones which way to go.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. But what I also love is that teaching has been a lifelong passion and a calling in your life. It's really been your destiny. But the way that it has played out in so many different ways, you've shown us that it's not just sitting in a schoolroom or behind a desk, a teacher's desk, in front of a classroom where we teach. We teach through our stories. We teach through the dramas we write on TV. We teach even in how we choose to do things and the way we choose to address the problems that we see in life. And what I love about your career is that every time you've seen a problem, every time you've seen something in society, like for instance, the story you wrote about HIV, picking up the pieces, all the way through to now Coco grows food, like whatever the generation, whatever the level, there's always a lesson behind the story. You know, and I think that that is so powerful. And so, like, as we are now engaging with the work that you're doing now, I just feel like it's so rich and it's so full of like all of those lessons that have been percolating, and you know, that skill of writing that's just been honed and that you've been exploring. And it's amazing. I mean, even when you talk about it, it lights up your face. There's like a sparkle in your eye, and you can really tell that this has really all been a labor of love. Just very quickly, could you tell us about how you see the rest of the writing and publishing industry in Zambia? And as an elder and as somebody who's had such a long career, what is your desire and your hope for what this industry should become and what it should be doing?
You know, we have a problem. Writing in Zambia is a passion. It's difficult to make a living out of writing. It's very difficult. I can say the money I've made in writing and came from commissioned books, okay? Commissioned books, and when I wrote TV plays, that there I got a bit of money. But when you write novels and think you can make money out of it, it's very difficult. You make a little, but not something that you can even buy something tangible, okay? I've been fortunate in that I've received commissions, and I've done some textbooks because I was commissioned, I was asked to write. So such books sell easily, and you make a bit of money. In Zambia, paper is very, very expensive. So some people actually have chosen to publish their books outside the country. Some have chosen to print their books outside the country. You choose a publisher like Sotren, then Sotren will do the publishing and send your print outside, you know, to be printed in China, in India. Those are the places people send, yeah. So for me, I would like all that to be done in Zambia. So we talked with my publisher, Sotren, and we agreed the anxiety, the waiting, and when they make a mistake, you have to send the material back and they take ages. I feel it's not worth it for me personally. So we agreed we have to print the books here, my books. I think this one was picking up this one, Despite the Bruises, was printed up in China. But that's where we had a lot of anxieties. But since then, all the books that I've done have been done in Zambia, though the cost is more. It costs more by doing books in Zambia. Going forward, I would like to see the publishing industry go into recycling, using recycled paper. I don't understand why we should really insist on using very expensive imported paper, because we don't have the money, you know? Let's just come down to our level, do the recycling. There are a lot of papers flying around in the country. So we get all those papers, newspapers that are not bought, books that they want to discard, you know? And actually, there are some books that arrive from other countries because they don't want them there anymore. They just give us free. All you do is pay for transportation. All those books can be recycled, and we use recycled paper, which will be cheaper. There's another method actually where you print on demand. You know, if somebody says, I want 20 copies of this book, that's when you print 20 copies. It has also got a disadvantage. It's expensive when people print on demand. But again, it's easier for sales. You don't have to worry to have boxes and boxes in your bedroom of books for you to sell. But at least when you are printing on demand, somebody says, I want 10, you go and you print 10 and you sell your books. We have another problem, actually. The other problem we have in Zambia is reading. You know, we say culture is a way of life. And in Zambia, the reading culture is very minimal. It's there, but it's minimal. I feel really we should do something. Start with the young ones. That's why I write for children. I want them to love having a copy, you know, love having a book. They will never grow out of it. When they are older, they will start looking for books so that they have a copy, okay? As for going to read books straight from the internet on a laptop, I think we'll be marginalizing a lot of children. How many children in Zambia can afford a laptop or a phone, you know? So if we say we go the laptop way or the network way, we are saying a lot of Zambians shouldn't read. So we are still stuck with the printing books for a long time. Because when I go to the village, I can't see a parent getting money to buy a laptop for a child and you put the books in there for the child to read. It's impossible. They don't have that much money. You see, they are more worried about bread and butter than about the child really getting a book from the laptop. Yeah. In my whole village, I don't think there's anybody with a laptop. There are some people with phones, yes, but not a laptop. And even the phones, they are not smartphones. They are simple phones. So, really, the publishing industry has a lot of work. There is also advocacy. We have to really teach the Zambian or the Zambian people what we mean by reading culture. It isn't a question of simply taking a book and reading all the time. It's a way of life, all right? It's getting a bottle of Fanta and checking, reading what is written there, what is in the bottle of Fanta. You know, do I want to take all this stuff into my stomach? All that is part and parcel of reading culture. But most of us understand reading culture as buying a novel and sitting down and reading. But it should start from a way of life. Once people understand that is a way of life, buying a book and looking at it and reading it will be easier. Parents should be taught as well. So advocacy should be there. But there's no way a parent can stand up and say, my children don't read when you yourself, you're never seen with a book. So we should teach the parents themselves that they should love books, for their children to love books. Okay, they should love reading for their children to love reading. You see, if you love a book, you find your little 2-year-old getting a book, even if it's upside down, you know, it's imitating you because you've got a book. So the 2-year-old will get a book, and that's the beginning of reading. You know, she'll start turning the pages because dad is turning pages. So it really begins from there. Yeah, it's a way of life. And we should understand what we mean by reading is a way of life. It's our culture. Which is
definitely. Yeah, definitely, yes. What our children see us do, they imitate. It's so, so true. When you were talking, you just reminded me of when I was 5 or 6, wanting so desperately to accompany my older sisters to the library because they would always go on the weekends. And sometimes they would go on a Friday and then go back on a Saturday morning. And, you know, it was like a weekly ritual. And as soon as I could get my own library card, I got it. And as soon as I was able to go to the library on my own, I did it. And for the longest time that I could remember, that was my ritual. Even when, you know, I was able to watch TV for longer, I just couldn't get out of the habit of always like settling down with a good book on a Friday evening and reading it throughout the weekend. So it is true. It is a way of life. And it's something that we have to value. And it's something that I think parents need to not just love, but at least don't stop your child if you see your child with a desire to read from doing it. Don't ask them why they're doing it. Just give them the room to explore it, because they're telling you something about what they value and who they are as well. So that's very, very, very profound. We're coming to the end of the live, and I could just continue talking to you all night long, but we do have to honor our time commitment. And as is our custom, as we come to the end of every live, we always ask the author in residence with us for that night to read us an excerpt from one of their works. So we've asked Maliya to read from one of her works to us this evening to help us close off the book club tonight. So Maliya, please share with us your reading for the night.
Thank you. My father was sitting on his camp chair while my mother and Aunt Eunice, Dad's sister, kept to the reed mat. As I laboriously approached the house, I could see the three of them clearly enjoying a comfortable conversation, which was far from what I was going through at that particular moment. It must have been my father who spotted me first, for I saw him casually turn and then sharply look up at me. He stiffened. I tried my best to walk properly, but the pain between my legs dictated otherwise. Aunt Eunice caught on first. I saw her mouth twitch and her round eyes glint as she lost the perplexed look. My poor mother was a pathetic sight. She was all flustered and there were beads of sweat on her brow. She said something incomprehensible and almost stood up, but Aunt Eunice touched her hand, restraining her. When I got to where they were sitting, my father asked me to walk back and pick up a stick at a distance. It was the longest 20 meters that I've ever walked. I do not know what my parents discussed after I had left, but my mother cornered me in the bathroom as I was taking a bath. She gained entry into the room by saying she wanted to scrub my back. "What happened to you, Kupera?" she asked. I hesitated, remembering what Phoebe had said. "I can't say. Phoebe said I'll end up with a hard back." "You will end up with a sore back if you don't talk right now," my mother warned in a matter-of-fact voice. And when mother uses that tone, you are better off telling. "Phoebe said we should pull if we want to become real women. Manakazingaingaye," I said. "Pull what?" she challenged. "Two small things here," I said, pointing somewhere in the vicinity of my groin. "Oh, that." She thought for a minute. "Let me see." She lifted one of my legs and took a peek as I struggled to keep my balance. Her eyes popped out at what she saw. She winced. "Remove those things," she said, pointing at the makeshift body clamps. I obeyed right away. Both of us looked relieved. I swore never to use the cursed things again. She proceeded to use the cold compress on my visibly swollen pair of unmentionable parts. "I must have a word with this girl." "No, mother, you can't. I don't want to lose my friends." My mother gave me a quizzical look. "I won't. If you promise me you will not continue with this." "Look, my child, the Bible says you are fearfully and wonderfully made to fulfill all the roles of womanhood." That's all.
Wow, 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 wow. I'm just, I'm blown away by that reading. Thank you so much. And as is true to your form, you've left us with a powerful lesson to remind us all also as women that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And that's where we find our real womanhood in. So I can't thank you enough, Maliya, for spending this time with us together on Wednesday, not just you and me, but all the people that tuned in on Facebook and YouTube. And I also just want to thank you for leaving this profound message in your story and in this interview for other writers, for the publishing industry and for the world. We can't take matters of time lightly, especially with what the world has gone through during this pandemic. So it's been a privilege and an honor, and I thank you and I honor you very, very much. It's because of women like you that women like me can even dream of doing careers like the ones we have today in publishing and writing. Bless you and thank you so much for this time.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed being with you and with the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, yes, and there's the book, the beautiful book. So ladies and gents, all of you that have tuned in, wherever you are, we leave you with warm feelings and our love tonight. And we will see you again during the next book club. Next week, we have a special masterclass on, so we won't be on Facebook. But if you want to join that masterclass, you can register using the link that we will be sharing on the Facebook page. Otherwise, we'll see you the following week on here at 7 p.m. But if you want to do the masterclass with us, just DM us or register using the link that will be on this page from today going forward. We love you, stay warm, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Bye, Maliya.